for the moment I see Virginia McConnell. 2 or 3 webinars ago, we were doing some group work, and you ended up with a, I'm going to call it a tennis shoulder that had been bothering you for, I think, years, if I recall it right.
Yeah. Yeah.
How is it now?
Well, I kept testing it, and I was worried that I was going to start it up again, but it lasted for about 3 weeks, and then it started back. And so, but then after the next webinar, it's gone again.
Oh, it's gone. And did you notice during that webinar that it left during a group healing time?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. I wanted to, sometimes when we do this kind of thing, a shoulder thing like that or a physical ailment is just gone and gone for good. Sometimes. But that can also be misleading. That's why I wanted to talk to you, okay?
Yeah.
Because the likelihood is, with what we were doing, we weren't really doing that much personal, customized work for you. What was happening is unseen therapists coming in, love is coming in. Behind the scenes is a form of forgiveness that shows up, whether or not you can identify it. The shoulder gets better, and so that lasts a while until, once again, life hits us in the face. And other things come along, and here comes our shoulder again.
Well, I did put that in the list, you know, that we were to make up.
Yes.
And I didn't quite have 5 things, so I put that in there.
Yeah.
So it wasn't that I was unthinking about it. You know, when you said tune into your whatever you want to tune into, and then we'll see what happens.
Okay.
So when it went away, or when it came back, then I tuned back into it, and so I'm going to continue. Okay.
Well, I'm going to be addressing that in a few minutes. There's something that I want to bring up to the group. There's a difference between what I'm going to label artificial healing and true healing, and I want to draw a distinction.
Okay.
And so this conversation you and I are having is going to be helpful in that. I had a number of feedbacks from you, and again, the feedbacks are really important. And one of them had to do with the use of tapping. Now, I rarely use tapping anymore, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't, or as you're transitioning, if that's what you want to do between the tapping form and the optimal EFT form. One of the points that was made, though, was there's a usefulness for tapping for the immediate anxiety. For example, if you're about to stand up in front of a group and give a talk and you have some anxiety, worthwhile just to do a little tapping rather than to be quiet, bring an unseen therapist, and so on. Myself, I'm beginning to develop the idea of, rather than just start tapping under circumstances like that, I don't even need to close my eyes anymore. I can just bring an unseen therapist, calm down, and go about it. I think we can all develop that in time, but there's a use for physical tapping that I bring to your attention. Lindsay Guttridge, you wrote me an email, and I asked you if you wouldn't have a discussion with me today. Could you raise your hand for me, Lindsay Guttridge? There you are. Good, thank you. I'm going to unmute you. All right. All right, say something, Lindsay. Say hello.
Hi, Gary. Hi.
Good. Hi. There you are. There you are. Good. All right. So you asked me, you wrote me a nice long email, and you asked me some questions, and they, generally speaking, had to do with, gee, what if I really do become one, flip into the oneness? Might there not be some problems? I mean, that's the essence of what you asked me, was it not?
Yeah, on the kind of earthly, in a grounded day-to-day basis, how do I sustain that presence and still be connected to other people, my day-to-day life, and live in this worldly way? Kind of trying to marry that up, I guess.
Okay, and the assumption behind that question, I get it a lot, so thank you, Lindsay, is that, oh gee, if I get into that oneness, the ability to be within a body and be on this earth and be with your loved ones here and so on suddenly vanishes or something like that. I mean, that's the perception I'm hearing. Correct?
Yeah, for me, definitely kind of a perception almost maybe the same as dying, in as much as I don't necessarily have a fear. I feel like I'm going into a good place through death, but
Yeah.
But there's a release of where I am now, moving to a new place, and it feels like a similar journey.
Yes.
A disconnect from my current life.
Yeah. Okay. So let me respond this way. I have been there briefly myself, if you've read our materials. Okay. And I recall in that state saying to myself, wow, I want to stay here. Okay. That's what I said. But I wasn't saying to myself, oh, gee, staying here means I'm leaving everything else behind. What I would be leaving behind is the irritations of the world. I would be leaving behind the limits of the world and so on. I would have a much different engine running what I was doing. But I would have a choice. I can be in the body and running around on planet Earth, and I would be using the body as a means of communication. I would still look and walk and talk, you know, like I always did, but I'd be using it as a means of communication, because those who have not been in that state need to hear about it, and it's best to hear it from some person that has a mouth and ears and all of that, rather than from some ethereal voice from above, which you may or may not know is a voice from above or your chatter or whatever. Okay. The other thing I'd point out to you is if you look at our spiritual experiences that are listed on our Optimal EFT website, have you seen those? Mm-hmm. You have? Okay. The very first one on there is Sally. And Sally, if you recall, was in a version of this state for 2 weeks. And she functioned perfectly well. All she could see was perfection, and she acted and responded accordingly. Also, when I was talking to Linda Carr a time or two ago, who's recently come into she calls it her bliss capsule, while she was in that bliss capsule, I mean, it was an ecstatic experience, but she was functioning fine, you know, as far as the body is concerned. So that's a long way of saying, Lindsay, it's like a choice. Is that an adequate answer, or do you have more questions?
Yeah, no, it's an adequate answer. I don't know if I have more questions. I think intellectually, I hear that. I can understand that concept. And having trust for you helps me to accept that, rather than it seeming too out there. But it's different from having the experience. So there's still a big unknown.
Yeah, and what happens, Lindsay, in this whole process is it's highly unlikely anybody, including myself, is going to flip the switch just like that. All of a sudden be enlightened, if you will, permanently, and so on. This is a process. I've been at it for years, okay? And we get higher and higher and higher up the spiritual ladder. But this automatic thing, I mean, I would be surprised if people get there, great. I'm all for it. They get there and stay there at this elevated level. But what we're into here is a process whereby you get more and more of this ability as time goes on, and your ability to walk and talk and be among the rest of the world and function within it becomes more effective. The pleasance of your presence grows, and so on. So I'm trying to give you some comfort. How am I doing?
Yeah, good. Okay, I guess it leads me to the second point in my query, which is if we are aiming for this enlightened state, what are we doing here in these earthly bodies, having this experience of separation? What's the purpose of that if we're trying to move away from it. Does that make sense?
Well, that question was asked, I think it was last time. And it's a kind of, that is a theological question that's been asked countless times over the centuries. Okay. What are we doing here, kind of thing. And it would take me about 3 weeks to properly unfold it as I understand it. However, the short and quick answer, which I gave last time, I will give again here, okay? And that is, and by the way, if this violates anybody's religious leanings, etc., don't shoot the messenger, okay? I'm parroting here what comes out of A Course in Miracles. The idea is, our original creation was as spirit with God, only love. In the process of that, we were given 100% complete free will. Nobody's dictating anything to us. That's part of complete love. With our free will, we got the notion, gee, what if we were separate and more special still? Bingo, we create a world that has all of this in it. It is an error to be corrected. It's not a sin, it's none of that stuff. It's simply an error to be corrected. We are in the correction phase here. We're just looking at it, trying to correct it, looking at it carefully. And that's what we'll be doing with these webinars and Optimal EFT and so on. Now, did that answer that or not?
Well, I've heard all the webinars, so I did hear you say that. So thank you for saying it again. I guess it's just hearing it a little at a time, chipping away, and allowing that to just circle around until it sinks in.
Yeah, and
I can words. I can, yeah.
And believe me, it takes a while for it to sink in. It is still sinking in with me. Still, okay. Academically, yes. Am I owning it? I'm getting there. Sometimes, yes, I really do own it. Sometimes, no, I'm back into the other stuff, you know. So it's again, it's a process. But you also asked a third question, if I recall it, which I want to discuss, and that really had to do with you are in the healing professions. You are a therapist, correct?
Yeah. Did you want me to say?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and this may be some of my stuff because my original training was as a counsellor, but I don't really identify myself as a healer or a spiritual person in my work, although I have those private beliefs. And of course that comes into my work, but I don't vocalize it very much within my work. And now I'm looking at this model of EFT, which is very actively coming from a spiritual perspective, and I'm trying to work out where that leaves me. Am I, by working in this way, am I moving more from therapist and facilitator, which is where I feel I have been and I am, to a spiritual leader, a teacher, or something other?
Well, I think everybody in the healing professions, every therapist, needs to draw their own blend of these things. It will depend on some of their clients do not warm up at all to anything spiritual. Let's bring in, the spiritual dimension, something like the unseen therapist. It's too woo-woo for them, and you wouldn't bother because they're gonna run out the door. Okay. So for that client, you wouldn't bother with. You would have this background yourself. And with that background, of course, you begin to see their issues differently. You begin to pull up different ways to go about the healing process. Your facilitation takes on it becomes different and changes over time. On the other hand, if you get into the full-blown optimal EFT part, you are no longer the therapist. You are no longer doing the work. It's unseen therapists doing that. You still become a facilitator in that you help them put these things on the table so they really know what the issues are. And we put them on the table, and they're on the table. Unseen therapist deals with them there, and the guard at the gate can't hide them very well if you've got them on the table. So part of your job and part of your skill, and the kind of things we're going to explore as time goes on, is ways in which you can facilitate this by putting it on the table. But the shorter answer to that is you need to blend whatever you're learning here at whatever level you choose to borrow from it, however you wish to within your therapy practice. How's that?
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Gary.
Okay, great. Anything more, Lindsay?
No, it's just lovely to talk to you. Thanks,
All
Gary.
right. All right, thanks. DG, let me unmute you. Go ahead.
Hi, let me take this off just to realize that.
Hi.
There, Gary. Doing. I'm having an issue that's bothering me. Yesterday, out of the blue, I started having major tinnitus in my right ear, and it's gotten worse. I thought sleeping would have helped, but now I have a loss of hearing in my right ear and a slight numbness on this side of my face. I don't know what's going on. I did the EFT, didn't work. And I was hoping if this is something that the group could help me with. What the heck is going on with this part?
Well, okay. Yeah, thank you. And that allows me to bring up a topic that I started off with Virginia McConnell. So let me talk for a little bit, and then we'll go from there. And that had to do with the idea of artificial healing versus true healing. Now remember, hers was a shoulder problem that she's got basically from playing tennis for over the years, and so on. And so we did some group kind of work. Yes, yes, yes. And it did help her for, I think, 3 weeks, she said, and so on. However, there is something misleading about that. There's two things about that. One is that is an extraordinarily helpful healing mechanism to be able to call an unseen therapist and have something with your body improve and rather quickly. That's a good thing about it. And for a lot of people who are on this optimal EFT wagon, if you will, that's what they really want to do. That's the level at which they want to do this. There is, and they're welcome to do that. Everybody is welcome to do that. Okay. What I'm trying to aim at here is a level where we come to true healing. DG, let me ask you, did you have a chance to read the True Healing article on my website?
No, I haven't, but I do know that it's an emotional base. I've been going through a lot of changes, so it surprised me, and it didn't surprise me like, oh, it's starting to localize. Okay. So I do know there's something emotional attached to it.
Okay, but it actually goes beyond emotional, what we're doing with True Healing. So thank you. It gives me a chance to talk about this because it's a very important point to emphasize. Recall, please, that our true nature is really this oneness that we're told about with our quantum physics and the spiritual experiences we've had, and of course the miracles and all the other things. Our true nature is this oneness, okay? And in the oneness, well, we are in an erroneous belief in separation, and we don't see the oneness because we're in the separate state. To get to the true healing that is in the oneness state, we need to have what is called, this is also on the website, true forgiveness. True forgiveness is defined differently than we tend to define it here. True forgiveness is actually an understanding, a recognition that this whole experience running around in the separate state is a dream, it is an illusion. It is the actual recognition of that. And so that these things that we think we forgive and haven't really quite often, the true forgiveness says, it never happened to begin with. It was a dream. It was something in a dream. It didn't really happen. That would be true forgiveness. And true healing would be true forgiveness applied to whatever is going on. Okay. Now, I probably should have had a different lead into this to begin with, but let's get to Virginia McConnell's elbow and to your tinnitus. Okay. In the world of separation, these things show up because of a lack of forgiveness of some kind or other. We are not in the oneness state. We're out of it, and that means there's some form of a lack of forgiveness. There is something you need to forgive. I don't know what it is, and we're not really going to dig into that here. For you personally, because it would take more time than we have at this moment. So when we apply group healing, or we apply healing on a surface level, we can often get results on what we're talking about, but it is misleading because we haven't gotten to the cause. That's my important point here. The cause for gold standard EFT is the emotional issue involved. The cause for optimal EFT is the spiritual issue involved, which really gets into true forgiveness. Boy, is that a lot of words. I hope I did that well. How am I doing, DG? Does that make sense, or am I?
Yes, yeah. I'm in the same belief as you are about that. And it's the loss of hearing that's bugging me more than the tinnitus. So. Well,
yes. And so here's what tends to happen. Here's what tends to happen. And here's some of the feedback that I've been getting, and one of the things that I'm trying to make a shift on if we can, and that is we want optimal EFT to take care of our physical things because that's what we call healing here. We want our body to feel better. We still want to be in the dream, in the illusion. We're still in the illusion, but we want a better version of it. We want the illusion with a better hearing and not tinnitus, or in Virginia's case, without the shoulder problem. And so, but we're still in the dream. So, it's a sort of a patchwork approach that can be, unless we customize it to you. Now, you asked for the group to help you. I want to do that. Okay. But I'm going to do that in a few levels here, which is going to allow me to bring some other points up at the same time.
Okay.
First of all, one of the things that has been very clear to me from the feedback is that people really like the whole idea of radiating love, that whole concept. DG, are you familiar with it?
Yes.
Okay. I want to go through that again. People like that, but it's going to be kind of a forerunner to what we're going to do with you. Okay? So if I can have everybody do this with me for the moment, we're going to practice the radiating love thing. The way we do that is to close our eyes, and do that now if you would. And get quiet. And recall a loving moment someplace in your past. Does not have to be a grandiose loving moment, a simple little loving moment. And recall the sense of, gee, that feels good. And dwell on that for just a moment. And then expand it, make it more intense, double the intensity of that, or triple, or more. And as you keep going, you're likely to find some kind of a block to that. You only go so far. Maybe it feels good, but you're only going so far. And just notice that block may be there. All right, if you would, and here's a place where we're going to use tapping to help us deal with this block. So if you all open your eyes, and then tap along with me. And here, by the way, I'm assuming that you've identified some kind of a block. Even if you haven't identified it, we're still going to address it anyway, okay? So even though I have this block to complete expansion of love's presence, I deeply and completely accept myself. This block, 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 this block. Okay, now if you would, close your eyes. And we're going to do the same thing we did before. Let's get back into that loving moment. Get back into the expanded state you were in and see how much further you can expand it. Expand it more and more. And I'm going to give you a few minutes for this expansion, okay? Get into it and really dwell on it. Okay. You guys should open your eyes. DG, I'm curious. We didn't really aim anything at your hearing or your tinnitus. Do you notice any changes there?
I do. Now I feel like my left ear is a little bit plugged up. No tinnitus, but it's plugged up a little bit. However, this one, the tinnitus has gone down a little bit.
Well, 10%, 30%?
I would say about 15%.
Okay.
Has gone down.
But then you ended up with something else in the other ear.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I found that funny. So.
Okay. Well, it's all right. Okay. Now the thing to do, we're going to do another round of it. We're going to aim it at your, I'm going to call it your hearing difficulties.
Yeah. Okay.
And we're going to do it this way. And this is so that everybody gets as much benefit as they can. And by the way, I am assuming that everyone has their own list of specific events they brought in here that they've already decided or evaluated on a scale of 0 to 10 basis and so on. So you will know, you'll be able to evaluate after we're doing this if any of your issues are helping as well, because we are all one. We are all going to, as one, work with DG in the oneness, if you will. So, if you would, close your eyes. And now imagine yourself I have to be a little careful here because of the empath problem. Close your eyes and generate as much of the love that you just generated in the previous exercise. And imagine that love filling a ball that has everyone here in it, with DG and her hearing at the very center of it. You want to fill that ball with all the love you can, radiate it from yourself. Fill the ball. Let the end result of it go to DG. And be quiet now, 2 minutes. Okay, open your eyes. Do you have any way of assessing whether or not your hearing has improved, changed, gotten worse, or whatever?
It's gotten down to about 90%, and it only started after I started focusing on my guardian or the guard at the gate, telling it to open up and allow the wonderful love to come in. And I visualize for me literally a gate opening up and allowing the energy to come in. And
All
then
right.
my thanking everyone.
Just so I'm clear on that, when you say 90%, that means you are now have 90% of your hearing? Is that what I heard?
Yes, tinnitus has gone down 90%, and while it's a little bit plugged, it's a lot better. It's a lot better.
Okay. All right. Now, I do want to point out that this could be a version of the artificial healing we're talking about because it hasn't been customized to you. You and I have not sat down. I have not asked you questions like, well, gee, when did this first start? Mm-hmm. Oh, it started, whatever it was. And were there really emotional things going on about then? Or who might you be angry at that might be causing this? Or where might a lack of forgiveness be someplace in your system? Mm-hmm. You and I haven't done that and haven't put those details on the table.
Correct.
Okay. When we can be specific and put those kinds of details on the table, then when we bring unseen therapists into it, there's less guard at the gate. That's the way I like to put it. Okay. There's less guard at the gate because he can't hide something you put on the table. Mm-hmm. Okay. He's less likely. He may hide pieces of it. Okay. He's good. Okay. But that would be the point. So whether or not this holds the rest of the day, the rest of the month, the rest of your life, I don't know. Mm-hmm. If it doesn't, that doesn't mean it didn't work. It doesn't mean love didn't come in and do its thing. Mm-hmm. It means there's more customization to do. We need to get closer and closer to the true cause, mm-hmm. being true healing, as I tried to explain it earlier.
Well, I did feel the energy coming in from the outside in, from all of you, and I want to thank all of you for participating and helping me with this. So I certainly felt an energy coming in. Okay. And great. Love to you. I'm the engineer here who wants to make all these other technical points. Otherwise, we can end up being misleading. There's a massive amount of potential here, but a lot of it has to do with our own personal work, and that's really what we're aiming at here for those who want to go to the ultimate steps here. Okay. All right. Anything more, DG?
No, that's it. Thank you very much.
Susan, you had a question or a comment.
Hi there, Gary. Hi. How are you this evening? Well, it's this evening for me, but the morning for you.
Okay.
Yeah, I really loved what you were talking about in the forgiveness sense. And for me, it's that, but it's also about that unconditional love of ourselves. And when I work with my clients, it's really about helping them connect with that totally not separateness, which you talk about, and connecting with that unconditional side to them. So without the judgment, without the ego that we talked about, without the ego and without the judgment, and looking at themselves as this whole soul, I suppose we would call it, the soul part of us. And that's something that's a work in progress in university, really, isn't it? But when we're talking about for me anyway, when we're talking about the ailments in the body showing us experiences, the forgiveness and the unconditional love, I think, go beautifully together. Well, it's on the same vibration, I would say.
Yeah, and one of the ways I look at it is for myself personally. If I develop some kind of a disease or a body ailment of some kind or other, I typically look at, what do I need to forgive?
Yeah.
It's a clue to me.
Yeah.
I'm doing something emotionally / spiritually that I need to look at. The body is this gives us evidence of all of that. I mean,
message. Yeah, it's a message. Yeah.
the messages are all, if we're listening. If we're listening.
Yeah. And the lady, the lovely lady, DG, I don't know what your real name is, but DG, about the hearing, it's quite interesting that it's just happened with you, perhaps over the last day or two. Is that right? Was it yesterday or today?
She put a thumbs up for the last day or two.
Oh, yeah, it's difficult to, because we just had a really big shift, didn't we, energetically in the universe, where if we were thinking that way about our unconditional love. And so it might be something to think about, is what doesn't she want to hear, and maybe what she needs to forgive around hearing, and what she might have heard, or what she doesn't want to hear. And I know that's a bit meta healthy, but definitely from the soul perspective, our body will help us to not hear something by giving it that sound.
Yeah, and that's more of my term, customization that goes on. You know, that's another, actually it's a sort of a psycho-speak question, you know, what is it you don't want to hear? I mean, that's, but that's the kind of question you want to get to, because behind that is some form of unforgiveness, some form of lack of love, and so on, you know, so. But
also the spiritual side, because if it may be a little bit worrying to think, well, I can hear my inner voice, or I'm starting to connect more spiritually to who I truly am, it might be that little bit of block there is stopping that connection and creating a bit more separateness. So it might just be a little bit of process as people connect with your webinars each week.
Yes.
That might come up. So just that awareness, really. Yeah.
The thing I'm trying to promote here is the whole idea of customization, getting down to the details, etc. I mean, we've been developing that over the last 2 or 3 webinars, but I'm just hitting it a little harder now. We're going to go clear to New Zealand to Liz Hart. Liz, what time is it in New Zealand?
It's about 5:50 in the morning.
Thank you. Thank you for getting up so early. Yes.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure.
Yes.
So my question, Gary, is something that I run into when I'm trying to do the optimal. And what I find is, for myself, I often find myself in a dissociated state. And so it's quite difficult for me to get into the radiating love state when I'm dissociated. And I'm trying to figure my way around that.
When you say dissociated, are you doing this in your capacity, just helping yourself, or in helping a client? Because I know you're a therapist.
Working on myself. I don't have a problem so much when I'm working with clients, but when I'm working on myself, I find it much more difficult.
Because you dissociate?
Yes. I'm dissociated on my own issues. So it's quite difficult for me there at the same time to get into the radiating state while I'm dissociated.
Okay, I want to understand the term dissociated in this context.
Okay.
What I'm hearing is you're starting to get into your own issues, but you dissociate, and I'm presuming because there is something intense about the issues you really don't want to get to.
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right. All right. I would do a little optimal EFT on that issue, even though I'm blocked to even putting this on the table, you know, and bring an unseen therapist. Imagine the block. Unseen therapist comes in, and the block could be a brick wall. It could be whatever metaphor you want.
Right.
It's a block of some kind. Unseen therapist comes in, dissolves it, surrounds it in love, does whatever you metaphorically want to do with it. And then you go back to try to bring the issue back and put it on the table, and you're much more likely to be able to get into it more intensely. If not, keep doing it. You can also just simply tap, even though I've got this block, like we did a few minutes ago. You can do that as well. Okay. The other thing, and thanks for bringing that up, Liz, is that while we've had plenty of evidence that doing optimal EFT solo on oneself can have benefits, I get repeated input that says when we're dealing with somebody else or with groups or this kind of thing, that it's more likely to generate benefits for you. And that makes sense because love is not so much a solo thing. Love is an interactive thing. And so when you work with someone, chances are you can do that. So I mean, you have a lot of people in New Zealand, you know, who are in the therapeutic field.
Right. Yes.
And you could work with them, I guess.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Anything else on that?
No, that was just a comment, and I wanted to hear how you responded to that. And I think just doing either the EFT or the optimal on the block on the dissociation itself is a really good way around that. Thank you.
Okay. Well, you may even have a block to the block, in which case you would you would address the block to the block. You know?
Yeah, I'm pretty good at this stuff. It may be true.
Yeah, but thank you. But let me expand a little bit more here. Let's get into the guard at the gate for a moment. The guard at the gate really doesn't want us to put these things on the table and bring unseen therapists in and start dissolving them, because the more it can hide, the more it can say, see, you're separate, and all of that. Okay. The more stubborn it can become. So this is the guard at the gate talking to you. At least that's the metaphor that I put on it. Okay, it's the guard at the gate doing this. So for you to find ways to put stuff on the table that the guard at the gate wants to hide allows you to get more and more steps up that spiritual ladder, because you've got less and less competition from the guard at the gate. Okay, the more we can put on the table, the more progress we'll make up the ladder.
Yes.
That's a way to say it. Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks,
Gary.
All right. Bye. Okay. Your video, your audio cut out a little bit. So what I'm going to do is restate your question, and you tell me if I got it right or not. Okay. Since we're all one, yes, we can do work like this, and all of us can benefit. Yes. Okay. Does that idea extend to the details, the customized details that may be necessary for each individual? That's the essence of your question?
Yes. When you customize it to a specific person, like whatever person, maybe just say Darlene. When you gosh, I'm out of words right now.
Well, okay, but I've got the essence of your question, and you're cutting out a little bit. So let me respond to that if I can. Okay. One of the things that we did in the last 2 webinars is I dealt one-on-one with Shelley with some very specific customizable things that we did. We customized it to her circumstance, and we had everybody else then tap along, or not tap along, optimal EFT along, unseen therapist along with that. Okay. That is a way of, in a group setting, hopefully getting to the details of everybody's issue. If we just use unseen therapists for one person's physical issue someplace, that's a much more general thing for the group than for me to deal with somebody with their individual specific events in their life, to deal with that. Because while you may not have had Shelley's specific events in her life, the details may be different. You still deal with the same kinds of emotions, the griefs, the angers, the guilts, the traumas, the fears, and so on, that go into that. And so, because I'm getting into more details with her, that allows your system to pull up its own details, and so we get more details even for you.
Yeah. That
does not necessarily substitute for one-on-one really understanding this process well and getting down to your details and the specifics of your particular case. So these are all levels of our own personal work. And we can go, fortunately, with optimal EFT, we can go as far as we want. We can be on the surfacey kind of level if we want. We can go in deeper waters of the swimming pool if we want to. We can go into the ocean if we want to. It all depends on how much we are inclined to get down to the details of our own work. Now, that was a long answer. Is that okay? Does that work for you?
yeah, that you closed a huge gap, because I was confused with what you said earlier. This webinar that you are going to customize and go more into specific details. But my read was from the one before the last one webinar, where we spent a lot of time with Shelley. I had a huge benefit from it. I was so high flying. I don't know how to describe it. Yeah, it was great for me.
Yeah, okay, and listen, in the feedback that I get from lots of people is, yes, that was extraordinary. I had this result and that result. Some of my specific events got better, et cetera, and all of that really works out well. And yes, yes, yes. So we beat the drum for this kind of thing. What I'm saying is, there's more details still. There's deeper work still. There is more to go than what we've done so far. That's the point.
Okay.
Okay. All right, Melanie. Thank you. Okay, Howard, Cheryl and Howard.
Howard.
Hi, Gary. Howard will be right back in.
I'm here.
He's coming.
There he is. Okay.
We made a lovely discovery this last week.
Okay. Well, yes. before we go to your lovely discovery, if we may, I've had a few people write in saying, "How is Howard doing in his heart surgery and all of that?" And all of that came out well, as I recall it. Correct?
So far, there's one little complication with the leg.
Left leg.
Left leg. There's a borderline thrombosis, a borderline blood clot. And the doctors did a ultrasound. They couldn't find it, but that was several weeks ago. My family doctor is concerned, and it still hurts.
Okay.
But the family doctor is looking to apply a solution to that.
Yes, and I'm working on my own solutions on it too.
We're doing optimal EFT too.
Optimal EFT, some nutritional stuff that should help it. But I'm doing great.
Before you go any further, Howard, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I'm curious about something. The left leg, where is the discomfort?
Two places where they had to remove veins. It wasn't just a heart valve, but they had to do a triple bypass at the same time.
Yes.
When they removed the veins, there's still quite a bit of inflammation around where they removed the veins from, in two of the places on the left leg.
Well, where are the two places?
One near the groin and one just below the knee.
On the left-hand side?
On the left leg and the medial side toward the inside.
Yeah. Okay.
But quite a bit of hematoma on the underside of the leg there.
It's still inflamed. It's still firm. There's a lot of firmness there that shouldn't be there.
Under the thigh. Yeah.
On a scale of 0 to 10, give me a number for the discomfort.
It varies. If I touch it, like right now, it's about an 8 right when I push on it. If I sometimes when I'm sitting, it will go up to that level. Sometimes it goes back down to a 2 or a 3.
Okay.
But if I push on it, the specific spots, it's up to an 8. It's up to an 8.
Okay. Well, I'm experimenting while we're talking. I'm trying to do conversational EFT while I'm hearing you. I'm trying to bring unseen therapists in for it. Sometimes I just completely strike out, go no place, and sometimes we get magic, okay? I'm just curious if it has improved since we've been talking.
No, it's actually gotten a little more tender.
Okay.
And maybe I'm finding the more tender spots.
All right, well, so goes that theory. Anyway, you had something you wanted to say. I'm sorry, I interrupted you to begin with.
Yes, we have discovered that if we invite the guardian at the gate to come into the light with us, it's a lot of the blockages that the guardian puts up drop down. They sort of drop away. And this fits in with the concept in Judaism that we're born with two souls. One is the animal soul and one is the divine soul. The animal soul dies with the body. But the analogy is, to my mind, the animal soul is the guardian at the gate.
Is it like low self and high self?
And it is the divine soul's job is to harness the guardian at the gate and to teach it how how we're supposed to be?
Well, that's a very interesting idea. And I want to move that idea around a little bit to what we're describing the guard at the gate to be, and that's this insecure little 8-year-old boy who's very stubborn. Okay, insecure about who he is, and so on. Go ahead, Cheryl.
The way we discovered this was we were working some issues, and my guardian was just finally spoke up and said, I just feel left out. You keep going there and leaving me behind. What's the deal? I don't like that.
Right. Well, that's an 8-year-old boy talking in a way.
So we tried just inviting it to come along. We brought it in along with us. Right. Amazing results. Amazing.
Yeah, and I think if that helps, and I would encourage anybody else listening in to give that a shot. Try it in its various ways to bring it in. The guardian of the gate, basically, it's a metaphor. It's just a way of looking at our ego, if you will, our belief in separation. And of course, our belief says this is who we are. We are these separated bodies. So, don't do anything to upset the boat. We want to stay separate, and it wants to hang on to its identity in that way. So one way to look at it is, if we truly get enlightened, if you will, then the guard at the gate is nothing but a belief. It's a poof. It just, who cares? However, are we really going to just flip the switch and get enlightened overnight? Well, I've been at it for years. Okay.
Well, but we've also looked at the concept of the ego or guardian at the gate is comprised of all its memories. And it is everything it knows. So my thinking was, well, if we bring it along into the experience, it has now added to its memories.
Sure. And what you could do, and that plugs in also, thank you, Cheryl, to the idea of our specific events. Because the guard of the gate or the ego specific events are our specific events. Okay. And so if you want to bring the guard of the gate in, sit at the table, if you will, as we're going through the specific events and collapsing them. The guard of the gate goes, oh, maybe I can let go of that one. Oh, I can let go of that one. I can let go of that one. Okay. Yes. That I think is going to be workable for lots of people. It may not work for everybody, but that's why I'm saying great idea. Give it a shot. Give me your feedback on that, folks. Write to me. Let me know what's going on. But let me ask you two guys, you said amazing results. Can you give me some examples?
Well, I have an inner, round table, you might say. And I have taken through many years of doing therapy and work on my own issues from a lot of very abusive events in my childhood. They have become my inner children. Not just one inner child, but many, because of different ages. And they greeted and invited this another inner child right into the circle and showed her how to play and enjoy in the light.
No, he wants a specific.
And so I would take an event that I'm having to work on, and I know that there's the guardian at the gate that's holding all the memories about that, and I would bring it in to my light and invite the unseen therapist, and the whole event dropped from high 8, 9 down to 2 or 1 with the number for the event, but that inner child that showed up in my inner circle then also became much more lighthearted.
Yeah, okay.
And seemed much happier. And then I didn't find that issue bothering me anymore.
Okay.
During therapy, I found with helping a friend, when I invited the guardian at the gate to join us and go into the light with us, it made my friend's problems just disappear much faster than they had been. So we found it very effective to use it.
Can you give me a sense of how much faster? 50% faster? 3 times as fast? 10% faster?
Yeah, it's probably a 50% increase in
Well,
speed.
okay, there's 2 things that get involved. I love the idea. I'm just playing engineer here for a minute.
Of course.
There is how fast it goes, and by the way, we can't necessarily rely on Howard's use with a few people and call that scientific research. It doesn't really work that way. Okay. Howard had his own way of doing it, and a few people isn't really a big scientific study. Okay, but let's take that as solid input. Okay, and if indeed it becomes that a little quicker for everybody, that's great. The other thing we need to look at in the mix is how deep does it go, and of course that takes another kind of evaluation. How deep it goes, and there's not a clear measuring stick for that all the time, you know. So it's the kind of thing you got to play with and see what works for you.
What we do, we're using quite a bit with a modification of the ask and receive protocol, and that is a recursive protocol where you where you start with one issue, and if there's further issues below, you go around and around and around until you get them all resolved and come back up. And this bypasses the whole recursive thing, nature. So it goes very fast. And I don't know whether you'll be able to modify the optimal EFT to do that, but it seems to me when we use it with optimal EFT, which I use along with the A&R protocol, when I put optimal EFT, it also speeds things. It helps me find issues.
Yeah.
Now they tend to be a much more general issue than you normally go into. But a lot of the specifics then drop away at the same time. A lot of the table legs fall away, even though we're hitting a general issue with optimal EFT. And it's a way of bringing it all together with a client.
Yeah.
I'm not saying we should do that because the optimal EFT works very well if you hit for all of us just by itself. Well, but the concept comes in there of bringing the guardian at the gate in as part of us and not trying to destroy it. In the Jewish sense, we are not destroying the animal self. Without the animal self, there is no life. It dies with the body. And so we're not trying to destroy the guardian at the gate. We're trying to educate it and love it.
Okay. Well, the perception there, and I can see where it would come from, is that I am promoting the destruction of the guard at the gate. And I understand where that could come from. That's not really where I'm coming from. It's more like not its destruction, it's evolvement into something that's not necessary, which is not really destroying it. But however you want to do it.
I think of it more as transmuting, though.
Okay. Well,
I think raising up its, well, if you want to use frequencies or vibrations or levels, raising it up to higher and higher levels to where it all just sort of eventually becomes one, part of the oneness.
Okay. Yes. One more thing I want to say, and then I have one more question here, and that was you were talking about using optimal EFT in the general sense and getting a lot of the specific details anyway. I am seeing that does happen much more readily than it does with the tapping form of EFT, even our gold standard tapping form. But it's not complete. I've seen many cases where I've still got to dig down in and still get some more details. So we have a more efficient tool to use, but we still got to get down to those details, at least in our current understanding. So anyway, I thank you guys. I've got to go on to one more question here.
One question, the comment, the leg pain has dropped probably by about 40%.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Listen, I take credit for all miracles, on the planet. How's that?
That's wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you, Gary.
Bye. All right, last one here would be Gwen Sempe.
Exactly right.
I did it? Okay. Gwen.
Actually, it's not a question, but simply to, well, I guess, back up something what Cheryl and Howard said about this idea of bringing the guard at the gate with you, and just a different way of seeing it. What I've been doing recently, and I found quite a bit of success with it, is to make peace with the guard at the gate. And I have found it's lifted so much anger and depression from me. Just this idea of approaching it and saying, I make peace with you. And to bring it, as Cheryl and Howard said, into the light with you. And there can be, as Cheryl said, sometimes you feel as if there's more than one guard at the gate. And sometimes I find myself, oh, I'm feeling really good today. And something will happen. And then there's another one that's rearing its head. And it's this way of saying, oh, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Okay.
And we make peace. And that's all. I mean, it's not a question. It was just something in reference to what they were talking about, I think.
Yeah, I think this is a very, thank you, Gwen. I think this is a very healthy conversation because it gives people other ideas. And one thing I don't want to do is to put fences around the way people need to think about these things, because it gets very, even though we're all one, we have our individualized way of going about all of this. On the other hand, we're trying to maintain a common structure,
yes, of course,
within which all of this flexible thinking can go on. You know? And there's a little bit of an art in that on my part. So anyway.
Yes, of course. I mean, and then the idea of the guard at the gate is in fact exactly right, because there's that bit that's so resisted, that refuses, and it was just, for me, it was just an idea of trying to say, it's okay.
Here's something for you and everybody listening in to do to test your guard at the gate. Okay. And that is to take what we were doing at the very beginning of this, and that is generating this love and then radiating it out and expanding it, etc. And then we did it for DG, and we did it for Darlene, and so on. Okay. Do that, and then try to radiate it to somebody you don't like. And notice what may happen with any blocks you may have. Whoa, you know, and that will tell you whether or not you've got an unforgiveness issue going on. And chances are you do. And that's a great tool to find out, okay? You may want to say, well, I can radiate love to this person. Yeah, because they're nice. But this jerk over here, oh, come on, you know. Just see what goes on in your own head.
Oh, okay.
Evaluate your own not just you, Graham, but everybody listening in.
Yeah.
It's a great tool. It's a great tool. Okay, everybody. Thank you, Gwen. We've that's all the questions here. I want to end it with one, like we've been doing recently, one healing thing, but we're doing something a little different because somebody mentioned this to me and I thought it was a good idea. And that is, we're going to just end sending love to the whole ball, being to everyone, which means everyone's sending it to you as well. Okay. But this time, identify some other person besides yourself, some loved one who may be having an issue of their own, and just bring them into the ball yourself. Just bring them in. And so we have twice as many in the ball. We have everybody here in the ball, and then we have whoever you want to invite in the ball. Okay? So everyone close your eyes. Bring in whomever you want to bring in, if you want to bring anybody in. Generate the love and radiate it throughout the ball. 2 minutes. Okay, you guys, 2 minutes. Thank you. Now, one final thing, if we may. I really want to emphasize the value of your feedback. So please, go to our contact form, send me some emails, tell me your success stories. Tell me where you stubbed your toe. Do all of that. And so I get better and better understanding of what's going on. And, there's a place there where you can allow me to share it with others. On our contact form, allow me to share your message with others. I can put it on our website, etc., or to keep it private. It's up to you. But feedback. Let me know what's going on. Love to you all. Bye.